So I just rolled back in town after working in the boonies of Wisconsin at a tattoo convention in a casino. And I just wanted to make a quick unscripted video or homage, if you will, about this compact camera that came in clutch while working at this casino. I'm sorry for all those C's, but I give this camera an A. You see what I did there? Wasn't that cringy? Now I get it, rangefinders or compact style cameras are kind of on their way out, maybe depending on what price graph you're looking at, but in general a lot of people aren't reaching for these smaller systems like they used to. I mean, smartphone technology is just getting better with their cameras, so if we're talking about everyday carries or candid shots, people are just reaching for their phones. And God forbid you use a smaller sensor when we're talking about your paid gigs, right? I mean, why would you? Because it's a smaller sensor, which inherently means you're going to get less dynamic range, and low light is abysmal. But I personally like to have an all-in-one, easy-to-use camera as such on my paid gigs for a plethora of reasons. I mean, you can plop them where a big rig just simply can't fit. It could be less distracting to your talents if you don't want them to be looking at your camera. And the easier they are to use, the more inclined I am to pass it off to somebody just to get some nice candid shots. So I like to have a smaller system with me anytime in my bag if I'm out in the world trying to get my cat food money. And if we're talking about gigs like, say, this convention where I'd be running and gunning all day and I'm looking for something that I can just keep in my pocket around my neck that's not going to get in the way of my other systems, it's just nice to have a compact around. So anytime I do a gig like this, I have one in my backpack, right? And I started from GoPros, which are nice because they're small, easy to plot places, but if we're talking about that small of a sensor, the image quality tends to fall apart if we're indoors or dealing with artificial light. So GoPros were a no-go. I did it again. Then I went to the G100, which is a fantastic camera in itself, but it's just a little bit too big for my puny pocket. Then of course, we got the ZV-1, which I still keep around, but for this gig, I needed something that I could take some professional looking shots with while still maintaining great video quality that I could slip shoot, keep in my pocket, or pass off to someone else if I need to. The LX100 did absolutely every one of those things in spades for me. Get it? Because I was at a casino. I'm done with the puns. Now, this is a remarkable camera that just, I feel like, flies under the radar of a lot of people today. I mean, I guess as it should, because the camera was made a decade ago. And on paper, it just looks like a 12 megapixel digicam, right? But it's so much more than that. I mean, if we talk about the weird 4:3 size micro four thirds sensor and its aspect ratio to combat with that, you do come out with about 12 megapixels of usable image space. All of that weird stuff aside, this is a very small camera for what it is. A micro four thirds sensor with a very bright lens at its widest and longest, going from 1.8 at 25 millimeters to 2.8 at its longest 75 millimeters. So it's incredibly useful if we're talking about something this small. Paired with that large micro four thirds size sensor, it's a lot bigger than what you would see in, say, the ZV-1, which I was using previously. And it gives you some great dynamic range, awesome looking shots that you wouldn't really believe came from such a small camera. Not only that, it's completely fleshed out with specs and everything you need, from a dedicated viewfinder to just about having all of your dials and buttons on one side, meaning you can one-hand it if you're a street shooter. Now again, the LX100 for this job just basically stayed around my neck or in my pocket until I needed it. And when I did need it, it shined. But one thing that surprised me was just how smooth the workflow was, especially just from editing shots on my smartphone and transferring RAW files wirelessly from this 10-year-old camera. It just made everything so much easier than a lot of frustrating systems I've used, i.e. Sony's apps or Canon's. And we'll talk about those in other videos. So it was just cool to see that Panasonic's now defunct app worked great on my Android and the LX100 combo. And like I said, I needed something that could also do great video, and the LX100 did that. I mean, it wasn't perfect. There's no picture profiles or mic jack on the LX100, and everything shot in 16:9. But it did the trick. And I would also argue that it did it better than my ZV-1 because of the larger sensor. I was able to get some more premium looking shots. Now, there's no such thing as a perfect camera, right? And this has some flaws, or maybe they're personal because I have sausage fingers. One thing that caught me off guard was the placement of the auto mode, which is just a button right here. And I found myself accidentally pressing that a lot. And the other issue I have is also the placement of the filter button, which my sausage fingers laid on a ton. So both of those things gave me some unexpected and unwanted looking shots, but they're workable. But I really dig the style of this camera and everything they were able to pack into it. I could deal without having any articulating screen, and this beautiful rangefinder, all plopped into such a small body. It gives me quality that's reminiscent of, say, the GH4. This is just a cool camera, and I just feel like not a lot of people are talking about it. And again, maybe it's just because it's 10 years old, but I see a lot of older and newer cameras that are just grossly overpriced, where this is sitting at a reasonable cost. That said, I just think that if you're looking for a good all-around camera that as your everyday carry, your walking street photography shooter, B or C camera that will give you better images than, say, your run-of-the-mill 1-inch consumer style sensor camera, this might be the one to look at. They're on the market for around $400 to $600, and of course there's a LX100 Mark II, which I couldn't afford, but I'm sure it's good too. But yes, the LX100 is a beautiful camera today. Check it out. Thank you for watching. Sub to the channel, find me on Instagram at Matt's Notes, and I will see you next time.